Justice.
Yes.
Well, I think one of I think the facts of life on earth is that there's a great deal of injustice. There always has been. I think there's a great utopian fantasy about creating a world without justice. Part of the reason why sin is in the world is that we're meant to stand up, oppose it within ourselves, and attempt to help others remove it from themselves. I think one of the things about Dr. King, and my family is heavily involved in that movement. My sister actually marched across the bridge in Selma. I marched as a 7-year-old with my mother on Selma with the Theological Union in Marin County. So one of the things that was very clear, and I've heard this from people that were actively involved in that movement, is, in fact, somebody who struggled with my mother in the civil rights said at her funeral that we were motivated by a sense of hope, a sense of righteousness and indignation about these things. But she said, but there wasn't the kind of anger that you're seeing today in a lot of people. And I think that's because of the absence of the sacred. I think that one of our prophetic traditions from the Prophet Muhammad is he said, help your brother, the oppressor, and the oppressed. And they asked him, how do we help our brother, the oppressor? In other words, because they knew his teaching, so what, do we oppress with him? And he said, by stopping him from his oppression. And Albert Memmi wrote a very important book called The Colonizer and the Colonized, which is, he was a Jewish Tunisian who was looking at the colonization of Tunisia. And as an outsider, as a Jewish outsider within the Tunisian community, he could see this horrible cycle. And the wonderful poet Blake talks about the purple tyrants, the hand of vengeance found the purple tyrant's bed and smashes the purple tyrant's head and then becomes a tyrant in his stead. That this is the cycle of justice, the desire for justice by becoming unjust. This is something Nietzsche warned us in Fighting the Monster, don't become a monster. And this is very often what happens in these movements. I mean, one of the tragedies now of seeing a lot of reverse racism, and I'm seeing a lot of this now, just in a lot of the just from the Black Lives Movement, which has emerged, which is addressing a very important issue, but when it's very tragic for me to see a society that I don't think there's any society, and I've been all over this world, I don't think there's any society that is actively trying to overcome the historical wrongs of the past like this society. And I really believe that. The anti-discrimination laws that have been enacted in this country are unprecedented, and they're imitated in other places, but many places don't have them. If you want to see real racism, and I've lived in Africa, I've lived in the Middle East, and I've been to Asia, you will find racism that has no redress to those wrongs. And I think that the fact that there were so many white people involved in the civil rights movement that were trying to overcome those wrongs, and I get and I understand the real problems that a lot of white people have about white privilege and all these things. I understand that. But we need to help people overcome within themselves, not from a place of anger, but a place centered and rooted in a spiritual desire for not only helping ourselves, but helping others overcome these tribulations. And I truly believe that it is the sacred voice that enables this. I don't think the secular voice has that capacity, because I think the secular voice too easily falls into the demands of justice and not recognizing that not only do we need social justice, we need social mercy. And I really believe we need a social mercy movement.
There's a history of righteous anger.
Well, remember, anger ethically should be directed to the right object in the right degree, with the right amount, at the right time, and for the right reasons. And so when you're just angry, which a lot of people are, we call it road rage where I come from. I mean, there's just people that they're pissed off, and they're walking around angry, and they're looking for anybody to explore their anger with. And that's a spiritual disease. Anger is a mortal sin, not because it's an activity of an event or two events or three events. It's a state of being, ira. It is a state of being. And when you fall into that state of being, whether it's righteous anger, because every angry person is going to justify their anger. But if you don't see it for what it is, our prophet was asked once by a man, he said, give me some advice. And he said, la taghdab, don't get angry. And he said, give me some advice. And he said, in other words, I don't want that advice. Give me some real advice. And the prophet said, la taghdab, don't get angry. And he said a third time, give me some advice. He said, don't get angry.